Hello everyone, this is part 12 on how to make a shoot 'em up game in Scratch. In this tutorial, I will be finishing up the enemy boss plane by fixing some bugs, adding a health bar, and by making the player plane able to damage the boss. Anyways, let's get started. So first off, one of the problems that appeared in the last video was that the player plane was able to take damage from the enemy boss laser even when it was just charging. And to fix that problem, we can just go to the enemy boss laser sprite, and then inside of the firing block, so the show and fire block, we can just create a new variable. So variables, new variable, and then I'm just going to call this like can touch laser, and then click OK. And what this variable is going to do is that it's going to tell the player when the player can take damage from the laser. So of course, when the boss lasers are charging, then we set can touch laser to no. However, once the laser is fully charged up and does its firing animation, which is over here, then we want to set can touch laser to yes. And that's going to mean the player plane will be able to take damage from the laser. And now all that's left is to go to the player plane, and then inside of the detection part, we can go to the very end, and then I'm going to add in the laser detection. So let's go to operators, and then I'm going to grab an and. And for the player plane to detect the boss lasers, we want to check if the player plane is touching the boss lasers, and can touch laser is equal to yes. And then the player will be able to take damage. So let's add this inside of this part with an OR operator. So go to operators, drag an OR, and then I'm going to drag this part on the right side, and then drag any part of this on the left side. So like this, and then I'm going to drag it back in, and now we have the laser detection for the player. So let's try it out. I'm going to go inside of my enemy boss plane sprite, and then I'm just going to spawn the boss after like 2 seconds. Alright, and now if I try it out, the boss should spawn right now, okay? And if we look at our can touch laser variable, right now it's no. So as you can see, the player is not taking damage. And then now once the can touch laser is yes, then the player can take damage. So right now, as you can see, the player just took damage from the lasers. So I'm going to try it again. Right now it's no, now it's yes, and the player takes damage. Alright, cool. Now the boss laser detection problem is fixed. So I'm going to first hide the can touch laser variable. Alright, and now we can begin making a health bar for the enemy boss, because right now the player bullets do no damage to the boss. So let's create a new sprite, and our sprite for this one is actually going to be empty because I am going to make the health bar out of pen blocks. And we can get these pen blocks by clicking this button over here. Then as you can see, there is a pen option, so I'm going to select this one. And now we have these new pen blocks. So you can use these pen blocks in combination with some other blocks, for example the motion blocks, to draw on the screen over here. So for example, if I go to the pen and then drag a pen down block, then this is going to put our pen on the screen as if it's an actual pen on a piece of paper. So anything we put after this block is going to allow us to draw on the screen. So if I do like pen down and then, for example, move 50 steps, then what's going to happen is that, as you can see, we have this very tiny line that was drawn 50 steps away. So that's sort of a basic explanation of how the pen blocks work. And now I'm going to use this to create the health bar. So I'm going to first go to events, and then drag a when flag clicked, and I'm going to go to my pen blocks, and first erase all, because whenever we reset the game, of course, we want to erase all existing pen marks. And then after that, I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to create a new variable, and then I'll call this something like boss health. So I'm going to click OK. And then after the flag is clicked, I'm going to first set the boss health to something like, let's just say 200. And then based on our boss health, we are going to draw our health bar. So let's go to my blocks, and then I'm going to create a new custom block, and I'll call this something like update health bar. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to first have the pen go up. So that means the pen won't be able to draw anywhere on the screen. And then I'm going to set the pen color to first a white color. So I'm going to drag all of these to the left other than brightness. All right. And I'm going to also set the pen size. So I'm going to drag a set pen size to block. And then I'm just going to say something like 14 for now. And I'm thinking of making the health bar appear on top of the enemy boss plane right here. And I sort of want it to follow wherever the enemy boss plane is. So I'm going to go to motion, and then I'm going to drag a go to XY block, and then I'm going to go to sensing. And from there, we can get the X position of the enemy boss. So let's change this stage part to enemy boss. And then we have the X position. Alright, and since the X position of the enemy boss is in the middle right here, we actually want to have the health bar start to the left of this middle point, because I want the health bar to draw from like here to here. So we have to actually go to operators, and then drag a minus operator, and then drag this X position of enemy boss on the left side, and subtract like some number. I'm just going to say like 30. Okay, and then let's drag this inside of the X. And now for the Y, we can just duplicate this. And then we can change the X position to the Y position. And instead of subtracting, we want to add some number, because we want the health bar to appear on top of the enemy boss. So let's go to operators and then drag a plus operator. And let's change this to Y position of enemy boss plus something like, we can try 50 for now. Alright, and then drag this inside of the Y. So now the pen should be somewhere around here. And now since we have finished setting the start position of the pen, we want to set the pen down, which means that anything after this block, the pen will draw. And then I'm going to duplicate this go to XY. And since we want the pen to draw all the way to the other side of the enemy boss, I want to actually add 30 to the X position instead of subtracting 30. So I'm going to go to operators, drag a plus operator, and then change this to X position of enemy boss plus 30. And then since we want the Y position to stay the same, we can just leave it like that. And now if I click this, then as you can see, the pen made a mark right here, but it's a bit too low, so I'm going to increase the Y position to something like 100. Alright, so let's try it out. Let's first clear, and then click it again. Okay, it's a bit too high now, so I'm going to make it like plus 90. And alright, cool. So as you can see, here is our enemy boss health bar. And this is only the first part of it, because we also want to have the green part of the health bar. So I'm going to go to pen, and then drag a pen up block, and then I'm going to drag a set pen color to block, and set it to a green color, like this. Okay. And then I'm going to drag a set pen size to block, and I'm just going to say like something around 8. And then I'm going to copy the first go to XY block, so the first one with the X position enemy boss minus 30. And then I'm going to drag a pen down, and after that I'm going to go to motion, drag a change X by block, and for now I'm going to put something like 50. And then lastly I'm going to drag a pen up. And all of this may seem a bit confusing, but essentially what this does is that this part first draws the white part of the health bar, and then this part draws the green part of the health bar. So I don't expect this to look perfect, but if I clear it and then try it again, then as you can see, here is the health bar. And of course, the health bar is not going to work right now because we're missing a few variables. So first off, since these are all the same number, I'm going to go to variables and then create a new variable for this. And I'm going to call this something like health bar width. and then click OK. So when the flag is clicked, I'm going to set health bar width to something like 100, let's just say. I might make it a bit longer. And then I'm going to drag the health bar width inside these numbers right here. So I'm going to drag in health bar width. All right. And since these numbers are also the same, I'm going to create another variable and then call this something like health bar Y position, I guess. Okay. And then I'm going to set the health bar Y position to 90. And then I'm going to drag the health bar Y position in all of these numbers. All right. And now if I just try it again, it should look the same, okay? The health bar is exactly the same, except that I just increased the health bar width by a bit. So now it's longer. But now we want the green part to change based on the boss health. And the way we change the length of the green part is with this change X block. Because if we make this change X by like 200, for example, then the green part is going to be much longer. However, if we make this change X like 15, then the green part is going to be very short. So the way we do that is actually by creating another variable. I'm going to call this max boss health, which is the highest boss health that the enemy boss can have. And when the flag is clicked, we want to set the max boss health to 200, or the boss health. So set max boss health to boss health. And since the boss health is 200 when the flag is clicked, that means the max boss health variable is also going to be 200. So now for the change X part, we want to change the length of the green bar based on the current boss health. And by the way, we are going to be changing this variable when the player damages the enemy plane. So boss health, and then go to operators, divided by the max boss health. And actually, inside of here, we actually want another divided by operator. So max boss health divided by, lastly, health bar width times 2. So let's grab a times operator and then have health bar width times 2. Okay, so you should have boss health divided by in the first part, and then max boss health divided by in the second part, and then health bar width times 2 in the last part. So what this equation pretty much does is that it gets the fraction of the current boss health over the maximum boss health, and then also takes into account of the health bar width. And then based on this fraction, we can know how much to change the green part by. So if we drag this inside of the change X by block, then it should work. And before we test the health bar, let's actually go to events and then drag a forever loop. And then I'm going to forever run the update health bar block. And now we can test it. So I'm going to first show the boss health variable. All right. And then I'm going to right click this and then change it to slider. And this way, as you can see, we have a sliding variable. And I'm also going to right click and change the slider range. So since our boss health has a maximum of 200, let's change the maximum value to 200. And now we should be fine. And just for reference, I'm also going to show the max boss health variable. All right. And now if we try the health bar out, as you can see, if the boss health is full, then the enemy boss health bar is also full. However, if we decrease this to, let's say, 100, then as you can see, the enemy boss health is half of its width. And now if we make the boss health even lower, then the green part becomes less and less. And if we make it into 0, then there's still a bit of green part left, but I'll fix that later. But anyways, the enemy boss health does work. So as you can see, it's working perfectly fine. Alright, cool. And now, since this is working, I'm going to hide the boss health and max boss health variables. And oh yeah, one more thing. I want the enemy boss health bar to change color based on how much health it has. So if the boss is at low health, then I want the health bar to have a red color. So to do that, I'm just going to go to pen and then drag a set pen color to block. And I'm going to go to operators, drag a divided by operator, and I'm going to go to variables and have the boss health on the left side and max boss health on the right side. And lastly, I'm going to go to operators again, drag a multiplication operator, and multiply this by 35. So if I drag this inside of the set pen color to block, and now if I drag this block after the set pen color to green, then I think the enemy boss health bar should change from green to red based on how much health it has. So if I show the boss health variable and then slide it around, as you can see, it goes from green to red. Alright, cool. So I think that looks a lot better now. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually move this update health bar block under a when I receive boss attack 1 event, because we want the health bar to appear when the boss starts attacking. And I'm going to grab a forever loop and drag it around the block. And now let's detect when to destroy the boss. So of course, we want to destroy the boss when the boss health is less than 1. So I'm going to actually make it if the boss health is greater than 0. So let's go to control and then drag an if else. If boss health is greater than 0, then we want to update the health bar. However, once the boss has no more health, we are going to erase the health bar. So erase all. And then I'm also going to go to control and drag a stop other scripts in sprite. So it stops the health bar script. And then I'm going to go to events and broadcast a new message. So broadcast new message. I'm going to call this boss defeated animation. So I'm thinking of playing some like explosion animation once the boss is defeated. And then lastly, I'm going to stop this script. And just to make sure, I'm also going to drag a erase all before the update health bar. And yeah. And now we have the boss health bar ready and also sort of set up the boss death animation. But now we want the player to actually be able to damage the enemy boss. So let's go to the enemy boss sprite. And inside of here, I'm going to drag a when I receive boss attack 1. We want to forever. And then if, go to sensing, touching the player bullets, which in my case is called the bullets. Then I sort of want the boss to flash and then take damage. So if we look inside of our enemy plane sprite, it's going to be very similar. So inside of here, as you can see, if touching player bullets, then set brightness effect to 40, wait 0.01 seconds, and then set brightness to 0. So let's do the same thing inside of the enemy boss. So if touching bullets, I'm going to go to looks and then set brightness to 40. Or actually, since the boss is a bit larger, I want it to be a bit less bright. So I'm going to make it set brightness effect to 25. All right. And then let's wait 0.01 seconds. And then set brightness effect to 0. All right. And lastly, we also want to go to variables and change the boss health by -1. Okay. So now the boss should be able to take damage from the player bullets and the boss's health bar should work. However, once the boss is destroyed, I want some explosion animation to play. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to duplicate our current enemy explosion sprite. So right click, duplicate. And then I'm going to call this boss explosion. Okay. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to call the health bar sprite health bar. And now inside of the health bar, I want to create clones of these boss explosions. So I'm going to go to events and then drag a when I receive boss defeated animation. So once the health of the boss is less than 0, then I'm going to just repeat, let's say 25 times, and I'm going to create clones of the boss explosion sprite. So create clones of boss explosion. And then I'm just going to wait something like 0.05 seconds. Okay. And after that, I want the enemy boss to hide. So to do that, I'm going to broadcast a new message after this. So new message. And I'm going to call this something like destroy boss. Okay. So now in our boss explosion sprite, once the clones are actually created, the code is going to be similar to the current code we have. However, I'm going to take out these two list blocks. All right. And then instead, I'm going to go to sensing. And I want the explosions to be around the enemy boss. So I'm going to drag a backdrop number of stage block, and then I'm going to change the stage to enemy boss. And now we have the X position of enemy boss. And since I want the enemy boss explosions to sort of appear in the area of the enemy boss, I'm going to go to operators and then drag a plus operator, put this on the left side, and then I'm going to drag a pick random operator, put on the right side, and I'm going to say pick random -80 to +80, and this is going to be for the X position. And then for the Y position, I'm going to right click duplicate, and then change this to Y position, and then pick random something like -40 to +40. All right. And then for the size of the boss explosions, I'm going to also drag a pick random, and I'm just going to say pick random 120 to 140%. Or actually, I sort of want some explosions to be really large, so I might make it like 240%. And I think these should be fine. And now if we go inside of our health bar sprite, if we were to click this boss defeated animation, then as you can see, there's explosions. And one more thing, I'm going to go to looks and then make these explosions go to the front layer. So now they should appear on top of the enemy boss. Okay, so that animation is going to play once the boss is defeated. And of course, once the boss is destroyed, we want to stop the attacks and the movement of the boss. So let's go to the boss laser sprite. And then I'm going to go to events and drag a when I receive the boss defeated animation. Then I'm going to stop other scripts in sprite and also delete this clone. So the lasers are going to hide. And inside of the enemy boss, I am also going to drag a when I receive boss defeated animation, then stop other scripts in sprite. So it's going to stop all of its movement and stuff. And also, let's go to variables and drag a set can boss shoot to no. Because if the boss were shooting spikes, then we want it to stop. All right. And lastly, inside of the health bar, since we broadcast a destroy boss message once the boss finishes the defeat animation, we want to hide the enemy boss. So inside of the enemy boss sprite, let's go to events and drag a when I receive destroy boss. Then I sort of want the boss to slowly fade out. So I'm going to go to control, drag a repeat. I'm going to say repeat 25, and then go to looks and change the ghost effect by 4. So the boss is going to slowly fade out, and then we want to hide the enemy boss. And alright, so the enemy boss health bar should appear, and then the enemy boss should be able to take damage from the player bullets, and once the enemy boss health drops to 0, then it should play an animation and hide. Alright, so let's test this all out, but before we do, I'm going to first go to my player plane and set the weapon level to 4 just to speed up the boss killing process. And now if I try it out, then alright, we have our enemy boss. And then once it starts attacking, yep, cool, there's the health bar. And then the player can shoot at the enemy boss. Alright. And as you can see, the health bar is slowly changing from green to red. And then once the enemy boss health drops to 0, then as you can see, it plays the boss destroyed animation and hides. Alright, cool. So one thing I did forget to add was that inside of the player plane bullets, we want to make sure that we destroy them once they touch the enemy boss. So inside of the, when I start as a clone, okay, in here, inside of the repeat until, we want to go to operators and then drag in or, and also go to sensing, drag touching enemy boss, and add this or at the very end. Alright, cool. So now the player bullets should be deleted once they touch the enemy boss. And let's try it out. So the enemy boss is appearing, alright. And then once it appears, then it starts attacking, and it has the health bar. Okay. And then the health bar is slowly becoming red. Alright. And then, once the enemy boss is defeated, it does the explosion animation and then hides. Alright, cool. So now I sort of want the game to continue once the enemy boss is defeated. So inside of the enemy boss sprite, after it receives the destroy boss message, I'm going to go to variables and then set the boss spawned variable to no. And I'm setting this variable because inside of our normal enemy plane sprites, they only spawn if boss spawned is equal to no. So of course we want those planes to spawn again once the enemy boss is destroyed. And I think to make this variable a bit more clear, I'm going to rename it to something like boss showing. Alright. So of course, if the enemy boss appears, boss showing is going to be set to yes, and then once it hides, then boss showing is going to be set to no. Alright, so let's try it out. Okay, here's the enemy boss. Alright, it appears. It's doing its attacks. Okay. And then once its health drops to 0, it gets destroyed. And as you can see, the normal planes spawn again. So yeah. And now I'm going to go back to my player plane and set the weapon level to 1. And also, I'm going to go to my enemy boss sprite and make it spawn after, like, let's just say 60 seconds. Alright, so I'm going to try the game out again. So now from the very beginning, so we have single shot. Okay. Now double shot. And the boss should be appearing in around 30 seconds, I think. Oops, took some damage. Alright, triple shot. Okay, it's a bit laggy. Okay. Now we have multi-shot. And the boss should be appearing soon. Let's see. Maybe in like 10 seconds? It should be here soon. Alright, cool. So here's the enemy boss. And then once it comes down, it starts attacking. And it has the health bar. And okay. Almost dead. And then once it's defeated, it plays the explosions. And then the game continues. Alright, cool. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe too if you haven't already. In the next video, which is the final part of this entire series, I'll be making some small changes to make the game a bit better. By the way, this project is shared on my Scratch profile, link is in the description below. Anyways, that's it for this video. See ya!